tutor today is Adebanji Alade, who we first met in 2015 on the very first series of Landscape Artists of the Year. He earned a place in the competition with his submission of The Circus in Bath.
I do think that they will be very happy today because they've got trees and a building.
And at his heat in Lyme Park, Adebanji impressed us judges as well as his fellow contestants.
This is amazing. Wow. You're nearly finished.
Oh, well, a long way to go. It looks that, but because of our different styles,
good to me.
And his vibrant rendering of the landscape ensured his place on our shortlist.
Fantastic sort of reflection in the light and attention to details. Gorgeous.
It just looks like it's easy to him. It's amazing.
He weaves his love of figurative work into his landscapes to give a sense of captured moments.
I love people. Everything about people, it helps me when I paint outside too.
Making him the perfect guide for today's masterclass, Figures in Landscapes.
Today I'm going to be showing you something I really love doing in my painting, putting figures into a landscape. Some of you might find this a little bit daunting, but I'm going to share tips on how to do this effectively. So I've got my reference picture here, and I've got a landscape that is in progress, and I'm going to be putting the figures in by, first of all, sketching the outlines in a very organic way. I'm going to be sketching in a brownish reddish color. And the reason why I'm using brownish red is that most of the colors in the landscape are greenish, and red and brown are complementary colors to this landscape. So it's actually going to show and stand out more. I'm going to start with the first figure right here. And the first thing I need to do is to make sure I know where their heads are. Because when you're sketching a figure, you want to make sure you know, when you're looking, where the heads are, the level of the heads. And the first figure, I've just realized somewhere along where this tree is where this figure's head is. I also want to know where his legs end, so I know, because that's very quickly I'm going to just figure out what's going to be the top of his head and where is going to be the bottom of his feet. And I'm just sketching this straight on, naturally, organically. I'm not even using any sort of grid method or anything. It's just freehand sketching. So at this point, I've got the main features, his head, the foot, the legs, and the torso. That's enough for me. But when I start blocking in the silhouette now, you're gonna see it's gonna make sense. So let's go for the silhouette. And I'm going to use a dark color for that, which would be some burnt sienna and ultramarine blue. Just a few quick touches and very lightly. Now I'm going to refine him by putting in colors. And this, because I've already got a base, and the base is already enough for me to work on, now I can start adding color. And the color that I'll be adding in this particular stage, it's not going to be detailed color. It's just blocks and blobs of strokes to define each part of him. Like for the head, it will be like one stroke or two. For the torso, one stroke or two, just to keep it fluid enough. For his hands and head, I'm going to mix a quick skin tone, which will be yellow ochre, white, and a bit of red. Just a basic skin tone. And it has a little bit of sunlight hitting it, so I'm going to add some lemon yellow to that. So for the head, you can see where I am now. It's just one quick stroke like that. Not more than that, just a very quick stroke. And the reason why I don't want anything feeling overworked. The hands, just quickly a stroke, and then the second hand, quickly a stroke. So you can see that nothing is overworked. I want the figure to feel naturally as if they were moving. So no details, nothing, just fluid strokes to show a figure in motion. So now I'm going to the torso. He's wearing greenish, a sort of an olivey green. I'm gonna mix that color slightly, but I'm gonna make it lighter so it stands out because the part of where he is a bit dark. So let's get a nice olivey color in there. Just mix this color in. I'm going for his shoulder level, his arm level, where his chest is, at the other shoulder bit, a little stroke that joins up with his hand, where his whole belly is, just very quickly putting that in, and the arm that flows right here. So everything has this sort of immediacy to it. I'm just gonna quickly add some darks that define. These darks define where, you know, there's some creases, and they don't have to be so many, just a few. Okay, we're now going for his trousers now, which are dark blue. There's two tones to those trousers. There's where the leg goes back, which is a dark tone, and the main thrust of his trousers, which is like a denim blue. So this is a tonal shift, just something going from a mid-tone to a dark tone. There's two things I'm demonstrating. I'm demonstrating the light hitting him, and I'm also demonstrating movement. One thing you would notice in this figure is that he has feet. But watch what I do when it gets to the feet. I'm not gonna put the full feet in. I am just gonna swipe a tone, which is like a dark tone, and it's just gonna be very, very lightly touched, like that. You can see that I haven't put the feet in. The feet were there, but I've hardly touched it. And I'm gonna go for some of the ground color. I'm gonna mix a ground color, just a color of the ground around where he is. And I'm gonna make sure I flick that around it somewhere here. So it shows a little bit of him in motion. There's a little bit more to this. There's a slight shadow under his head, and I just need to mix a dark line, just a simple dark line, just to show that demarcation right there. Let's just work on a little bit of his hands and how they drop to the side. But apart from that, I'm leaving this figure in this form and in this shape, just how he is now. So for now, I'm gonna work on the negative shape in between his feet, and there's some shrubs at the back. And then finally, making sure that there's a nice shadow that is cast behind him, because that gives this figure a little bit of presence. If there's shadows, make sure you put the shadows so it feels like he's present there. So now I'm moving on to the next figure, and what is so important, because this figure is in front, is that I'm gonna be making sure that I get the proportions right. So I'm gonna be working on the sketch, because the sketch is so important to get the right movement that he has. And hopefully when we do this, you're gonna see how it moves again from the sketch to the silhouette to bringing out the color. Let's go. So I've got the head, and there's a way this figure it's just a very loose t-shirt he has on. You can see me just going and flowing with it. No real pressure. The main thing is the angle at which that leg in front moves. There's a lovely angle to it. It shows that that leg is in front, and there's a slight leg at the back. It just helps to make this work. First feeling of the hands right there. We just want to make sure we get all that movement, of his hand, the angle of his leg, and the straightness of the arm. So now that I've got the figure in place, I'm going to block him in with some dark tones. Because he's prominent, I'm also going to add the shadow that he casts. Just because he's all in dark, I can also add that shadow. I'm looking at the color of the ground, and the color of the ground is what I'm going to work with this particular figure, just so that it feels part of the floor and not foreign. So I'm just mixing this dark tone. I'm just going to pull this shadow and pull this shadow across so it will feel like he's there just before I start painting, because I'm still with this dark, and I'm going to flow that in, just fill that in as I go along. There's hands cast a shadow. You can see that hand on the floor at the back there. It wouldn't show that much. It's not going to show that much now until I start putting the real colors in, and then it will feel more natural. So as we did at the beginning, I'm going to mix a skin tone, just one stroke for each area, not overworking anything, just like the face, one tone, one stroke, not overworking it. I like the bend of his head, so keeping it just steady. I don't think I have the right brush, because that brush makes me fiddly. I want a brush, not maybe this like square one. It just gives me the opportunity to just place the stroke at once and leave it like that. And then the neck comes in, just one stroke. So everything is done again very lightly. And now let's go into what he's wearing. I'm just gonna swing again, straight strokes, one touch down. So in here, in there, just very light touches. So all this I'm working on now are the negative shapes, just the negative shapes, things that are not the figure itself, but things around the figure. And if you notice again, I'm not going to put any sort of feet in that area. I'm just going to make sure it feels fluid, just as it goes across, fluid. So you can see how the touches come in. It's hardly going to exist. I'm just going to make it feel like it's just touched the floor, nothing more. So I'm going to go for the next figure now. I'm mainly going to work on the brush strokes and how this helps the figure to really come to life. So the brush I'm using now is a filbert, and what it does, it helps me to get the right sort of shape or the right kind of stroke on the surface. It won't be too squared, and it won't be too harsh. It just gives me the right kind of touch that I need. So it can give me it can give me two kind of strokes. It can give me a sharp stroke and just a smooth stroke. And that's what I'm going to be using while working on this figure. All the figures that I'm going to be dealing with now are very small in the proportion to the landscape and everything. So it's just tiny little touches, and that will do. I don't have black on my palette, so I always tend to mix all the dark colors on my palette to give me the dark I need for a black. And that's what I've done now, just ultramarine, alizarin, burnt sienna. Just gonna put the hair around where she is. Whenever I make a mistake, I tend not to worry or freak out. I just scrape it off with the back of my brush like that. You know, that's kind of like an erasing effect, and it just helps me as I go along. And now let's go on to some light tones as I'm working on this. Some light tones around, that's the negative space around where she is, so that her dark hair can show. And that's what I've seen in the background, is there's some light colors just around there. That will help, you know, frame the face. And now I'm gonna go for trousers. Let's go. There's a nice shadow. And then that's more like moving us into the next figure, because we don't see the full figure of this particular figure. We don't see the fullness. I think there's a place where the next figure has definitely come in front. So we're gonna have to have her just slightly off and then just move straight into the next figure, because we don't see the whole of her. She's cut in, definitely. This figure I'm working on now, there's a lot of detail in the top shawl that she's got on the top coat. Now, I can't pick out all that detail, but what I am gonna do is to give an overall impression of those marks. Just brief little shapes and marks. I see just little strokes of red, and I'm just gonna place them. As I'm painting, you're gonna notice that most of the strokes I'm pulling, they just flow. And sometimes it might look as if, you know, this is something that I make to look a little bit like straightforward or easy, but it's come from years and years of practice, honing this skill, especially the sketching side of things. So what I recommend, if you want to really up your game with your figures and make them feel good and feel right, you're gonna need to sketch and sketch every day. And I'm telling you, it will really help. There are some figures behind that don't show that much. And those figures, I'm just gonna use blobs of paint to represent them. So they're not gonna be defined at all. There's only one last figure that's defined, and it's not much detail. And so because of that, I'm just gonna go straight into the figure with the shape of the color. There's no need to start to sketch it or try to refine it. The four main figures in front, they've got that, they've got the hold on the scene. Now I just need to go straight into the colors for these ones and work that out. I've looked at the whole thing, and the main figures are really in the place I want them to be. And now I'm just going to tie the whole landscape together and make it work. So I'm really pleased with how this has gone today. I like the fact that the figures have presence in the landscape. I'm also happy about the way the shadows show that they're actually there with the light hitting them. The figures are moving. You notice that there's some dynamism in the feet. Nothing is stiff or still. And I hope this will help you not to be apprehensive in putting figures into your landscape, but will give you the confidence to just Try it.
If you'd like to find out more about these masterclasses, go onto our website, skyartsartistoftheyear.tv.